Yeah, now it's happening.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to start. It's been 5 minutes. Hi, everyone. My name is Pukhraj Ranjan, and I am the head of community at HundrED, and I work out of the Helsinki office. Today's theme that we're trying to explore is just broadly the breadth of skills, and it includes, I mean, Freddie will explain a little more, but it includes a lot of the new 21st century skills, a lot of holistic well-being skills, but also just computational technology career skills that prepare our students for a better future. So obviously it's quite a broad topic, and we have two amazing speakers who will be sharing. So as you can see, Leah Clapman, founder of PBS News Hour Student Reporting Labs, and Sami Heino from Finland, who will be representing student agents. They'll be sharing their experience with the kind of work they've been doing, but also talk broadly about their take on breadth of skills. So to start off, since Anoop is not here, maybe first we can try to introduce ourselves in the chat box. So if we take the next 1 minute to write down our names, where we are calling in from, and what do we currently do. So I'm going to let everyone write something down in the chat. Can everyone see my point? Okay, yes, Freddie is writing, so I'm assuming it's working. Hi, Soumya from India. We have Ryan from UK working with Youth Made Initiative from Malaysia, who also happens to be a HundrED Academy member. So we will hear from him as well. Anyone else? There are 10 participants already here. So if you can leave some introductory message in the chat box, it'll be great. Butul from Mumbai, Sami from Hämeenlinna, Chris from Australia. Cool. Okay. This is exciting. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. I'm going to share the agenda. There's a mistake I can already see. It says, why are we focusing on holistic well-being? But ignore that. The way this is going to go is our researcher, Frederica. She will start us off with why we even chose this as one of our theme and how it came about, and what does the larger research say about the need to focus on this. And then after that, we will jump into hearing from our innovators, Leah and Sammy, as well as from our HundrED Academy member, Ryan. And then we will open it up for group discussions. If you have any questions of any sorts, please feel free to drop it in the question box, and I'll make sure that we get the answers from our innovators. So having said that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, maybe correct some of the mistakes, and let Freddie take over. So Frederica, your turn. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. As Puck said, I'm Frederica, and I work in the London office in the research team. And while we were writing the report, Every Child to Flourish, we came up with all the different needs that we found across the research globally for education, and what kind of initiatives that we were looking for meeting these needs. We really struggled actually with categorizing what we now call breadth of skills. There's a lot of different terminology out there. There's no clear guidance on the best way to discuss it, and people have different ways of discussing it. And we also incorporated a few of our own categories into it, which means that we ended up calling it breadth of skills. And we see it as those skills that are quite seen as very important at the moment, but can often be neglected from a curriculum. But we believe we really need initiatives at the moment that are doing a fantastic work, which a few of you are speaking today, and we're so grateful for the work that you're doing, that are meeting and addressing those needs that we came up with. So for us, breadth of skills incorporated inter and interpersonal skills, arts, humanities and social sciences, STEAM, which is STEM and the arts, media and digital literacy and life skills, which, as Pukraj said, often also includes 21st century skills, the 6Cs, and lots of different areas. And it's an area that a lot of teachers were struggling with on how they can incorporate it in their curriculum. And therefore we were trying to find initiatives that they could easily use within their classrooms. Students develop these skills for the 21st century and the job market that we are unsure of. So it's be great to hear more about your work today, and I know I've spoken to a few of you already about your work, and it's so great that you're all here today to share with us.
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute. But thank you, Freddie. And as we kind of experienced in the 100 Innovation Summit back in November, it's definitely something that is on a lot of educators' minds. And I'm very excited to invite next Ryan Ball, who's a 100 Academy member, who gave his voting, his opinion, and his expertise in helping us select some of the innovations that made it to the 100 2019 collection. And he also represents an innovation called Youth Made Initiative from Malaysia. So Ryan, if you would like to go next, you can unmute yourself, and yeah, welcome.
Hi, welcome. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever everybody is, I guess. So hopefully you can hear me. And I'm really sort of pleased, first of all, that we've got this opportunity to discuss this, and I think it's a really important thing that we are discussing today, and looking at different things that people are doing. Certainly the things that I've found through research and my own experience in education, having taught for 17 years, is that it is changing. The skills that are needed in the workforce in education do need to change. And there are so many educators, sadly, that are still doing the same thing that they did when we were at school, started teaching, and the age-old thing of, well, it worked for me, it worked for the students that sat in front of me, sadly still echoes through many of the schools that I've been in. And one of the things that we're is professionals and see what they want, what they foresee. It's pretty easy just to teach out. Examination boards, depending on whichever curriculum.
Okay, I think there was some issue with Ryan's video, or like at least the audio. So in the beginning it was fine, but we've lost him. Ryan, are you still here? I see him, but I don't know if it's working.
Yes. Yeah, you there?
Yes, Ryan.
We've currently
part kind of went away, but yeah, I'm not. If you want to
apologies. Yeah.
Sorry. Just to,
No worries.
the closing part, if you could repeat that.
Yeah. To You know, within those boundaries of an examination and the curriculum that we have to follow to get students to pass those exams, it is tricky. And I think it does mean that you need to be innovative and forward thinking and trying to stretch the boundaries as much as possible. So getting students to pass the exams, but also giving them skills that aren't going to negatively interfere with, you know, what inevitably want at the end of the day, which is that stamp on the piece of paper at the end of the exam.
Yes, definitely. And would you like to also share a little bit about the Youth Made initiative and how you contextualize like design and technology for students there? Yeah,
sure. So I teach design technology, and one of the things that we're doing, and the reason that the Youth Made initiative came about, is all of the work that we try and do now in my department works with a real design brief. So previously, when I first started teaching, and lots of the other schools that I've taught in, products were designed and made for no particular reason. When I first went to the school that I was at now 5 years ago, people were making a box for their cat, a bedside table for their mum, serving no kind of real meaning, and the numbers opting for the subjects were also low. And I think part of that reason is they didn't see the value in the subject. You know, they weren't making that link, either parents or students, as to how this was going to benefit them. So one of the things that we did is to start to reach out to companies and say, you know, can we contextualize this in some way there are still skills and problem solving things that we need to teach students, but let's put it into real life scenarios. So for instance, one of the things that we're doing with our year 11 students this year doing their IGCSEs, they're making toys and games for blind children for a local Malaysian blind centre. So nothing, the skills and the process is still the things that we've been doing for several years, but it's not designing for themselves. You know, they can see that benefit, helping other people. They have to go out and do research. It's not just for put it into context for students. And as this kind of grew and other schools were interested in it, we decided actually this is something that could be quite valuable to lots of schools in the area, through field visits and guest speakers and so on and so forth, not just design briefs. So we collated a range of companies, mentioned it to schools if they're interested in kind of making these links. And then, yeah, about 18 months ago we did that, and it's kind of, it's grown from there, I guess.
And now it's in 3 countries, right?
Yeah, it's almost in 5 now. We're working on Hong Kong and the UK at the moment as well. So it's kind of growing month by month.
Amazing. And I do think what you said really resonated, was just giving students an opportunity to try out and learn from things that will be very meaningful after they get out of school, and really, you know, contextualizing doing activities not just for the sake of doing it, but having that broader meaning. But yeah, thank you, because breadth of skills on its own sounds like a really big word and includes a lot of skills, but to ground ourselves in the value addition of it is really meaningful. So I'm happy we started on that note. Thank you, Ryan. The next person I would like to invite to speak is Sammy from Student Agents, and I think it's a good transition into giving ownership to students about their own learning. So it's an innovation from Finland, but I'll let Sami share a little bit about how his city and his teachers have been using student agents and what it is. So Sami, please take forward. And if you have a presentation, you can also share your screen.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. I try to share my presentation, so hopefully it goes well. So can you see it now somehow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Sami, and I work as an advisory teacher in the city of Hämeenlinna, Finland. And our city is a city in southern Finland, and we have approximately 68,000 inhabitants living here. And part of my work is to also work as a coordinator for our student agents and their guiding teachers in their schools. And student agent model it's one of those innovations that were chosen to be part of 100 innovations. And this is the third year that City of Hämeenlinna has a student agent program. And this is second year that all our elementary and secondary schools are involved. And all schools are community schools. And so this year we have around 200 student agents in our schools. And we are actually the first city that in Finland that all the city schools are involved in this program. And in whole Finland, there are around 100 schools that are involved in the student agent program. So who are these student agents? Many of the students have very good ICT skills that they have learned outside the school. And students are more familiar with the technology, and many times their ICT skills are superior to our teachers. So student agent program is one way to get those skills and that knowledge learned outside school to use and to be shared also in the school community. And student agents, their task involve supporting and training other students and even teachers in ICT skills. And please stop me anytime and ask questions if you want to. So what do these agents do? Our city schools they vary a lot. They're very different. We have schools that have only 100 students, and we have schools that have almost 1,000 students. So every school creates their own model that fits to their needs. So we don't have like one strict model that everyone has to do, but every school makes their own model. And for example, agents can be booked to work as an assistant teacher in classroom. Like for example, in the upper picture here, we have our 5th graders that were helping our 1st graders with their writing task. I think they were working with Google Docs and Google Classroom and things like that. And one thing that is good in this model is that when our student agents are helping with the technological problems and questions with those, the teachers have time to concentrate more on the subject. They don't have to use their time or worry how these iPads or Chromebooks or whatever work, but they can concentrate on the subject. And agents are there to help. So that's one thing, and that's probably the one task most often that student agents are used. But they can also work as trainers, and they can train other students or even teachers. We have had some schools that have had, during recess, they have little time when student agents are helping or teaching some app or using iPads or things like that. And there can be other students coming there to learn or maybe even teachers. So that's one thing that they do. We also like them to work together. All our agents from other schools can make trip to different schools where they can benchmark what the other school student agents are doing. They can change idea or train each other with new things. And actually, there are no restrictions that all the activities has to happen in school. For example, in the second picture, we have one of our student agents. They were asked to help our city council members when they got their iPads. So they taught them how to sign in and synchronize their emails and things like that to get their iPads working, because it was quite hard, and it was great experience for both sides that happening. And we try to encourage our agents to give their own ideas on what they do as student agents. So we don't want to give them things like you have to do this, you have to do that, but they can make their own ideas. How do we want to work as student agents in our school? And that's a very important part of this being involved in the development work and planning. And in every school, we have a certain teacher who coordinates the school student agent activity. So it makes them easier for the agents to work there. Here are some benefits that we feel that this model gives for the students. Big thing is that they can make use of their skills that they have learned outside the school. And sometimes the gap between school and the outside world is large, and I think this is one way to reduce that gap. Some students may have not been academically so successful in school, but they have gotten very positive school experiences working as a student agent, and it has motivated their other schoolwork too. And to see that something you know and you have learned outside school is also important, not only those things that you learn in school. And that's big thing. Other thing is that they can learn and teach each other. And I can't find a better way to learn and teach than from your peers. And when you try to teach someone something, some skills or things like that, you really have to deepen your own knowledge of that thing you are teaching, and it's a good way to. Students are really involved in developing the schools when they are teaching new technology skills to teachers and finding what way we should improve this model. They are really involved in that planning process, and that's very important. They also learn skills and competencies that are needed in the future, and I'll come back to this a little bit later. We also give them chance to have webinars and seminars, and here's a picture from our student agents fair, where all our 200 student agents come to show their own school's activities to other students. And we have had this for 2 years, and it has been very, very good place to networking with student agents, coordinators, and also student agents by themselves. At the end of the year, we give them a badge and also a diploma of skills. And that diploma, it's a nice memory, but it also can work as a diploma when you try to apply for summer jobs. And there are all the skills they have learned and used in schools are written in the paper. And it has been a very motivating piece of paper to give at the end of the year. Well, how about the schools? The students really have skills that are very useful and are needed in the school, and they can be used in a school. When you think that we have 200 students agents that are every day in the school, so there's 200 pairs of hands helping with little technological issues. That's a big help, because teachers really do need help. The change has been so fast. The new technology comes in all the time, and teachers don't have time to learn all those things. But when you have students that are interested and want to learn those things, they can be used and help also. Students also have courage to do things differently from us older people. So there's some kind of culture of experimentation that no one is afraid to experiment new, and that gives new ideas to the whole school too. And this is one way to really involve students in school development also. Here's a picture from our new national curriculum. National curriculum new one began to be used in autumn 2016, and as part of every subject the new thing in the curriculum was this we call them transversal competencies. We have 7 transversal competencies, and they are skills and competencies that should be practiced within every subject that are taught in in schools. And these are very close to 21st century skills, and very important skills that are not deeply in that subject, but are these universal skills that could be used. And I find that we think that a student agent model can help to practice all these skills during the school year. Well, if some school wants to start using student agent model, here's a little list that we thought, and this is used in our schools. So first we choose a teacher who is in charge and who's the guide for the student agents. And first they assemble a student agent team, and with the team, it's important that that teacher doesn't make those needs or think those needs, but with the team, they map the needs and the ideas, what we want this model, how we want it to be working in our schools. And design that and plan those little, are they training packages or whatever the school's model is, they need to map those needs first. And then they start using, working, developing the concept. And one big thing is to share these ideas with network. And we encourage them to network with locally within our city schools, but also in the whole Finnish student agent network. So you can also see what is done in other schools too. And this it seems quite simple, and that's what it is. But the idea is that the student agents are in big part on planning things. In some schools, not in our city because we don't have universities so nearby, but mostly in Helsinki area, there's also some university cooperation with Helsinki University's media path. But so this is also one example that it doesn't have to only happen in one school or your school. It can be a big network that can be used in student agents model. And also media has been noticing student agents model quite a lot. And I guess it has something to do that it is a new kind of activity also in Finland where students are truly actively involved in developing schools. And here are some pictures from in the top left, there's a picture when we really were teaching our city council members. There's also been stories in our national TV in the bottom left. But it is an interesting idea also in Finland. So that's short for our student agent model, and more can be found from HundrED's internet site. And if you are interested in hearing more from our city's views on student agent activity, please contact me and I'll be happy to tell you more. Thank you.
Thank you, Sami. This was really, two things that really stood out to me was one, like in the pictures, the kids are so young. Because I think a lot of times people just assume teenagers to be able to lead adults, but you know, like they were so like 5th grade, 4th grade, and they're still able to support their teachers and help them and be basically assets in the classroom. That was really inspiring. One of the questions I left in the chat, which I think maybe you could answer on the live already, is what do you recommend for educators who don't have, say, computers or iPads, but can still learn from like the overarching model of student agents?
Well, I think this doesn't have to concentrate on ICT at all. And this kind of work has been done all the time, all around the world. I'm sure that you have students helping with things. And I know that our city, we have one school that has two boys who are in one school that two boys who are, they are also agents, but they are like, what is that word? they help in all around things. They have some duct tape with them and all kind of tools, and they go to do little work if there's a window broken or things like that. So I think this model can be really spread to all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be ICT related.
Yes, thank you. And for those who are confused about why a student is fixing a window, that's a very hands-on
Yes.
learning curriculum. But thank you so much. I really appreciated even like the little image from the Finnish curriculum that you added in your presentation, in which ICT was just a small part, and there were lots of competencies which come under this. So thank you again, Sami. If anyone wants to connect with Sami, he has kindly left his email address there, but also you can go to the HundrED website to learn more about the Student Agents program. If anyone has any questions, please again leave them on the group chat, and I'm sure like how Ryan already answered my question, all the other innovators can answer your questions either personally or on this group chat. All right, so the next person, I'm gonna request. Okay, Sami, you'll have to cut your, yes.
Yes, I'm trying to.
That's why the internet's a little funny today. But anyway, next up is Leah Clapman from PBS News Hour Student Reporting Labs. It's a long name, but it's a US-based project-based learning program which uses journalistic inquiry, media production, and just local national mentorship to build critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, communication skills. So I'm very excited to have Leah, who's the founder of this program, join us and share a little bit about how they are building the breadth of skills in the students that they work with. So welcome, Leah. You can go ahead.
Thanks so much, Pukaraj. Can I share my screen?
Yes, yeah. So there should be a share button at the bottom. And if you click it, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay.
It'll be easier if we had some student agents. We'll all be faster at using Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you can see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so hi everybody, it's great to be here. My name is Leah Clapman, as said, and I came to education through journalism, actually. I had been working for the PBS News Hour, which is our public service media, kind of like the BBC, other, kind of government funded media companies, and we are the News Hour, so we're on every night, every evening, and for an hour, obviously. And so I had always been working with teachers who I knew were using the News Hour in their classrooms to look at current events and talk about different issues, give background on issues, all the coverage that we were doing. And I would travel to schools and talk to students too, and like watch different media. It'd be like showing a BBC, 10-minute story on Afghanistan and saying, what do you think? What did you learn? Did you what did you think of this media? And the students had always said, this is great, we learned something, but it feels like it was made by adults for adults, and we don't see faces that look like our faces or, hear our voices. So this was really to solve for that, and it started in 2009 with 6 schools, and I knew that they had like a broadcasting program, so they had some experience with creating media and storytelling, and we kind of had this relationship where we said, what would it be like to report on, how the economy is doing in your community, or different issues, infrastructure or immigration, or different things that we know, communities are talking about, but there's no perspective of youth in the media. So out of that, we built a curriculum, and as it's in our project-based. The students, really aren't doing this for they're working in teams. They're usually working in teams of between 2 and 5 students. And we give the topic, it's always really broad, so that they can really relate it to their community. And they have a mentor. We have project managers here in DC at our headquarters, who each work with their producers, their television producers, who have like an education, either an education background or have really like worked with teachers and have that really deep interest in working with students. And, you know, they have a Google Hangouts, they give feedback. It's a really interactive program, which makes it a little hard to scale, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Primarily the labs are either broadcast or journalism or filmmaking classes, but we definitely have had science teachers take this on, social studies, English. We do have a whole kind of science journalism area of our program. So that's where the science teachers have really found this a way to make their coursework and make the, you know, way that the students are investigating topics very STEM based, but then at the same time media, something that they're doing, you know, every day, all the time anyway. So it's a real connection between what they like to do in their own time and what they're learning in school. So as I said, we have developed this curriculum, and then there's mentoring from the local student reporting lab staff. But then what's also great, you know, and it depends on how it works in different countries, each each city and each kind of region of the country has its own public media station that knows its community a little bit more deeply, and might have a local public affairs program, or, you know, science program, or, you know, arts programming. And so we have those local journalists on the ground who can go directly into those classrooms. And that's why we are able to be as far reaching as we are in so many places that we are currently running. And then the student work, and this is, I think, where it really gets into, you know, the breadth of skills, the digital literacy, and the real relevancy to the students. The students' work, when it's really good, is on our PBS News Hour broadcast. So the News Hour goes out to, it's got an audience of about 1.8 million every evening, and 7 million, you know, a week on digital platforms. So the students' work is actually sometimes, you know, highlighted on that News Hour or by the local stations. So we really are making connections on social media platforms, you know, making sure that the local station, when there's a story produced by a school in their community, celebrates that work through sometimes, you know, their broadcast or their social media, or sometimes events. So I'm gonna click through a little bit more. By the numbers, we are in 150 schools, 46 states out of 50. And, you know, as I said, the stories, we've had 49 stories air on the News Hour, which is great for, you know, for a news program, but the schools really get together. When we tell them, you know, hey, your story is going to be on the News Hour, we see, you know, students come back from home to the school and have like watch parties, or they get together on, you know, social media to watch their stories. And what's amazing is that the schools and the rest of the schools in the network will really celebrate those students. So for us, we're really building a community of students who care about storytelling, who care about journalism. You know, some of them come at it from like, I love to take great pictures, and I love to be behind the camera, to those students who find their voice when they're interviewing people in the field, or the students who, you know, are just kind of being a part of the team and discovering strengths within themselves in terms of communication or project leadership. That's a big one I found when, you know, students really start to kind of become the organizer and become the person, you know, I mean, that's a huge skill that, you know, you don't really often get to develop in middle school or high school, because we are also in middle schools. So we do, you know, a lot of the story pitches are directly from the students. All of them are, but we give the topics. So last year we did misinformation overload, really talking to students about the information that they were seeing, how fake news, you know, is a huge topic here right now, how fake news impacts their lives, where they've seen it affect the adults in their community, or, just how they're feeling about it, and doing stories that reflect how this big issue that, lots of adults are talking about, how students and teenagers see it. Before that, we did New Americans. So this was all about immigration. And what's great is that you can really get beyond like the fiery headlines and the big political debates, because the stories are very local. So it's about, communities who are welcoming refugees, and they have a program in their library in Kentucky where residents of the community all get together, the immigrants are the people who have been here for generations, and they work on skills, or they play music, or they cook food. So these really kind of very local, very community stories that get, way beyond the kind of superficial coverage and the political coverage that you see in the media. The students also reported on students with disabilities in their community, which was a wonderful topic. It's, when you talk about learning things like empathy and learning things like, understanding yourself and how you perceive the world. The students who reported on these topics talked about how much they learned about themselves and the way that they view other people, and the assumptions and the stereotypes that they have, and how once you get to know someone and you tell their story, everything changes. We also did a story about social movements, local social movements around the country. So obviously last year we had, a horrific string of school shootings. And so there were marches, there were student walkouts. And because our students had learned how to use a camera, they had learned our method of coming back from the field, transcribing your footage, which means writing down everything that the person you talked to said. And then we have a whole process, and it's in our curriculum of finding the best sound bites, finding your best visual, imagery, and creating a script, and then editing that together. So they were really able to process what was going on in our country in a different way. And instead of feeling, like bystanders or helpless with the immensity of the issues, I think if you're able to go out and tell a story, tell someone else's story, you're really able to construct meaning and process what's going on in a very different way. And we hear that all the time from our students who talk about the experience. These are some other topics that they did. America the Beautiful, so they got into national parks, they got into the wilderness. Obviously, we just had midterm elections, so the students reported on youth vote and why young people in our country don't tend to vote as much as older people. So they really dug into that, and I think it was really important also for adults to hear that perspective on a national, platform. And it really starts a dialogue between the young people who are telling the stories and the adults who are listening. And it's like, I can't even describe how wonderful it is when students feel like they're listened to by adults in their community and by their peers. These are the topics that we're doing this year. We did the youth vote. Coming up, we have Chasing Dreams. So asking students to think about their hopes and dreams for their future and the obstacles that they face. And then, as I said, we do have a whole STEM section of our program where the students are reporting on, this year they're reporting on citizen science. Last year they reported on the impact of climate change locally in their community. So again, another way to really look at these big issues, but sit back and reflect on how they are playing out very locally in their community. And then a big one for us right now is adolescent mental health. So obviously, I think probably everywhere, students are dealing with mental health issues, wellness. We do have, regularly schools in our system, in our 150 schools, school communities dealing with suicide or drug abuse. And so this has been a really important topic for our students to tackle. And I feel like they really explore what's going on in a very different way when you're looking at it through a journalism lens and through a storytelling lens. The resources that we have, and these are all things that if you're interested, I can point you to, is our journalism curriculum. We do have video tutorials, so how to frame your image, how to get good audio, these are all things that we kind of assume students know how to do because they're on their phones, you know, on Snapchat and Instagram all the time. But when you really look at it from the perspective of audio, you know, a lot of the audio that you get is not very great, and it takes away from the story. So we really, you know, talk about the quality of the video and audio that you're getting, and then the intent of your storytelling. There's a whole section on journalism ethics, being responsible to your subjects and to your story. Obviously, the search for truth, looking through data, trying to figure out in the way that you are describing facts, and you know, just telling the best story with the most integrity that you can. And that reflects where we're coming from, which is public media, public service journalism. You know, our program is also really about, it's definitely changed from the beginning, where it was really about broadcast television, which is where we were from, to social media, because we know that that's where all the students are all the time. And so we are, you know, right now talking to organizations like Instagram and Snapchat, who really do want their users to find more meaning on their platform, but don't know how. So that's really exciting for us, and I'd love to hear, you know, from globally the perspective on social media and the way that, you know, students view it as a way, as a force for both good things and bad things. We do have, you know, we've played around with badges that talk about, you know, real world career skills. A lot of our students are hired through this process of learning video journalism. They are then hired locally to go out and, you know, be a videographer or graphic design. And then these are the badges that we've created from the process. Here are our partnerships that we've been working on, trying to really be where the students are. So I don't know if Teen Vogue makes it around the world, but YouTube definitely does, as does Instagram and some of the others. It's been very important to us to know that what we're doing is actually building the skills that we think are building, that we hear from our teachers that the students are gaining. So we've worked a couple of times with different researchers. Renee Hobbs is a big leader in media literacy at the University of Rhode Island. And she did a study that found that the students who go through the program have a, you know, significant increase in, as you would assume, media production skills, but gathering and synthesizing information. So she had a test of media literacy that she gave to the students before they started the program and then after, and saw a real increase in their ability to tell fact from fiction, to be able to communicate ideas. And then what we know from working with our students and teachers is that the students really learn how to give feedback to other students on their work. They really start to learn how to work within a team and express themselves, and to organize complicated team activities, which I think is really important. And then, of course, the media literacy skills. They can tell, you know, if you go out and you shoot video and then you come back and you edit it into a story, you know what's being left out. You know how you can take a half-hour interview, pick a certain bite, and have it mean something totally different than if you chose another bite. So their level of media literacy, I think, you know, really exceeds a lot of what adults have. But I think it's really important. And then, of course, you know, in this time when journalists are in danger, the work is really so important right now. But you know, there's a lot of threats against journalism from our own, you know, from our own White House, you know, the whole debate about fake news. Obviously, you know, the idea of what journalism, the role that journalism plays in society is really important to me and to all the students and teachers who are working on this project. So, you know, I just feel like, anyway, I could talk for hours on that, but it's a huge part of our program and really important at this moment. So these are some hard skills, and then, you know, I know the word soft skills doesn't, because they're really important skills that the students are gaining in terms of talking to people, in terms of explaining their work, asking intelligent questions, problem solving. You know, when you go out and do video journalism in the field, problems are coming up all the time. And to be able to have that experience, a lot of times when students talk about their work, they talk about getting out of their comfort zone, which I think is really important in your teenage years, to have those experiences that stretch you. So I have a couple of, you know, I would love to play videos for you guys, but I understand that doesn't work on this platform. But here's some of what the students had to say, you know, about the experience, and being able to be heard. I think that's the most important part of our project, is really activating that student confidence, and realizing that there's something that they can do to get their perspective out there, and not just their perspective. What I love is when students realize the joy of telling someone else's story, and seeing themselves as someone who, there are, you know, some infinite number of stories out there, but they have the power to kind of find ones that are important, and to kind of find, definitely from their perspective, missing voices, stories that are not being told that are important, that they have the power to tell. So it's really exciting to see students who go through this process and discover that. And whether they become journalists or not, I mean, they understand that they might go to medical school, they might go into business, they might go into the arts, but they're bringing that perspective with them, and that ability to tell stories and to recognize what good journalism is, and like the power that it can have in society for good. So that's it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'd love to hear feedback and ideas about ways to bring it into your community, into your country, and how that would look.
Thank you, Leah. That was really inspiring. I, like, of course, knew a lot about what PBS was doing, but just hearing all the examples and the research finding, the hard and soft skills that the students are able to learn, and truly, like, they're so critical in this day and age. So just amazing work. There are actually 3 questions for you on the chat, but I think we might have to move on. So I'll just ask one of them, and then you can maybe type out the answers for this. So this question is, where did it go? Yes, this question is from Gunta. I'm sorry, my name is Pukrat, so half of the time I'm not able to guess the gender, but the question is, are all students involved in this program if the school takes part in it, or only some selected students who are practicing this? And are these groups limited? Is there a criteria on who can participate? And sure. Last is there like a competition at the end or something like that?
Yeah. Great questions. So really the labs, and I'm sorry if somehow the slide disappeared of what is, you know, how does a school become a lab? So it's really about the teacher who facilitates it. That's super important. So a teacher will have a class, they'll apply on our website and get the curriculum, get some training. We do have every summer we have professional development in Washington, D.C., where the teachers come out and spend, excuse me, like 3 days with their peers, learning what it takes to become a student reporting lab. And so it's the students who are signed up for that class. And it's very different. Sometimes it's, you know, kind of the really go-getter students who want to be like on camera, and that's what they love. But a lot of times it's part of what we call here CTE, Career Technical Education. So it's a part of a track of students who are not, you know, it's not like that they're succeeding in the traditional academic topics, and they're looking more for career training. And, you know, so sometimes it's definitely students who, we are also in alternative schools. The program works really well in alternative schools. So students who have failed out or are failing out of traditional public schools or private schools, and this is like their last chance to get towards graduation. So it's totally runs the gamut, and depends on the teacher who's leading the program, whether those students are kind of selected, whether they kind of try out, or whether anyone kind of participates. I would say more of the latter. And yes, we do have a online trainings for teachers. And we are building a tool called Storymaker, which takes our curriculum and makes it much more accessible. Although I will say it's still a lot of, hard work, time commitment, real investment in the idea that you want to create, that you're going to go out into the field and do this journalism, and then, stick all the way through the process of editing and script writing. And sometimes the students, like they're pulling out their hair and they want to give up. So it does really take a teacher who can help students over the hard parts to get where they really want to be, which is to have this amazing story that they're proud of, that they're able to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your answers. And you can answer, like, there are quite a few questions which have overlapped, but you can still look at the chat and answer a few of the other questions.
Of course.
The next section is, I think at HundrED, we find it really inspiring to hear from innovators like you and Sammy, but then also start discussing these things on how you can implement or inspire these ideas and take it back to your own context. So the second part of this thematic talk is actually conversing in smaller groups. So what I would do next is, let me share my screen. 1 second, I'm sorry, but there are like 3 questions that I have left for the group to answer. I will split you into 2 smaller groups. So there are 12 people online right now, so it would be 6 and 6. And we will be just discussing these questions. You can take a picture of it if it would be easier to remember, but if not, you can get broadly inspired by these questions and take the conversation forward as you please. But first question is, a lot of the conversation we've had so far had some sort of technology and ICT skills involved in it. But again, as we said, and in the beginning, Ryan also mentioned, as well as Frederica, that breadth of skills is a lot bigger a concept. It's not just technology. So what do you include in your definition of breadth of skills? The second question is, how do we prepare ourselves to upgrade our own breadth of skills? Because again, from student agents, as well as PBS examples, we realize that maybe the kids are at a step further ahead than adults. So as adults, as educators, as teachers, what do we do to upgrade our skills? And then what do you do when there's a lack of resources or supportive environments? Because again, I'm originally from India, and I know that in the schools that I've worked with, you might not have access to, say, an iPad or a computer, or in, for example, the PBS example, you might not have partnerships like with YouTube or, local organizations. So what can you do and how can you take that forward? Because again, we want to have the conversations to stay positive and inspiring. And hopefully we're able to come up with some cool ideas in this group discussions. We'll have 15 minutes to talk to each other, and then we'll come back, share our larger takeaways, and then close out the call. So this is the time where you can speak your mind, because I know there are quite a few people who have just been listening. So it's time to talk. I hope you have taken a picture or made note of the questions. I am now going to, Gunta is a female. Sorry, Gunta, for making a confusion. But okay, we're splitting into 2 rooms, 5 to 6 participants in each room, and we'll come back in 15 minutes. So see you guys there. You should have a room to pick now. Yes, all right, our group's already coming back, but I guess when everyone's here, we can continue a discussion. "25 seconds, and hopefully we're waiting for 5 more people to join us, and then we can continue. All right, I think everyone's back here. I hope you all had an interesting discussion. Again, I completely understand that it's not really possible to deep dive too much into a specific topic in such thematic talks, but I would love to hear from one or many people what their major takeaways were and what they're thinking about now that we are ending this thematic talk. Anyone can start. You just have to unmute yourself and then go.
No, also, oh my gosh. So I think like our group was talking about, you know, the support that teachers need because, you know, this work's really hard, it might be intimidating. And, you know, I was saying that when we have our when we go out and do professional development for teachers, it's really important, not just those 3 days or that other, you know, that kind of training, but that they create a community where they're supporting each other. And I was saying that, you know, we have new teachers who gain a lot of strength from the really experienced teachers who have been in the field for 30 years. And at the same time, those teachers really need to know that like they're not expected to go into their classroom and be experts on, you know, every kind of single breadth of skill that they're teaching, but that they know that, you know, other teachers are in the same place of knowing what their goals are, but really involving the students themselves and an understanding of those goals so that the students will fill in the gaps, help fill in the gaps, in my case, in you know, technology and storytelling, that it's not all on the teachers, that there are, you know, strategies to get around the fact that they might be not an expert in every single thing and be able to handle every single situation that'll come up when you're dealing with classroom situations that are very fluid and are involving a lot of skills at one time.
Thank you, Leah. That's very true. And we were talking something similar in the group I kind of managed to join. Does anyone from the group want to share? And even Freddie has dropped some links. So anyone?
I guess we looked at the fact that with the breadth of skills that we discussed when we wrote the research, that we were including things like grit and perseverance and resilience, and how vital these skills are as well for students and their futures. We can give them lots of technology and train them for that, and that is very important. But with it changing so quickly, having these inter and interpersonal skills are vital so that they can adapt to these changing circumstances. And we looked at Dream Life Skills Assessment Scale, which is one of our initiatives from the HundrED Global Collection, which has begun to try and work on how we begin assessing these different kinds of skills, because we also discussed as a group how difficult it is and why a lot of teachers don't look at teaching grit and perseverance, because it's not something that we could put on a metric and say, oh, the students improved by 5 steps. It's a lot more difficult than that. So I've linked to the Dream a Dream Life Skills and the TED Talk on grit, which is really interesting if anyone wants to have a look.
Thank you, Freddie. And I agree, like breadth of skills is quite big. And if you try to achieve it, it's quite confusing because you don't know where to start. But again, rooting it back to what the students need, what the students' desires and ambitions are. And across all the speakers today, one thing that I saw as a connection point was just this value of making students being heard and feeling heard and being valuable. And those are I think, a good starting point, just activating student voice in your classroom, seeing what are the skills that they need, because a lot of times we as adults maybe don't even know where to start. And then also supporting them so that they're ready for the life beyond their classrooms, beyond schools. We have 5 more minutes left before I need to close this down, because I do want to stick to the time. If anyone has any sort of closing remarks, we can take them now. But yeah, I would let someone give any closing thoughts. Ryan, if you would like to, Sami, what are your bigger takeaways, or any of the other participants?
I think one of the things that I got from it as well is, you know, it isn't just the students. The educators and the teachers themselves are more important, I guess. You know, they're not going to learn or develop somebody at the helm, and giving opportunities for these educators to develop in a busy classroom environment. It seems more and more so people are doing it in their own time, and then struggling with the home life balance. And I think schools need to value their staff, and they need to invest in them, and they need to give them time. I've noticed in the 17 years that I've been teaching, I've never been so busy, and the workload is tough, you know, and I think this is one of the reasons that we see so many people dropping out of teaching, and certainly in the UK it's a struggle to get teachers at the moment, because it's a tough job, you know, and it's something that I find really rewarding and valuable, but you know, it's a 24-hour job sometimes, it feels like. Schools need to realise they've got to invest in the staff to get the best out of the students, I think.
100% agreed. And I think I do want to thank each one of you for joining us in this conversation, because it again shows that you are taking out time for your own professional development and learn for the benefit of your students. So again, a lot of gratitude from my side and from HundrED's side. Sammy, would you like to, you came live, so just wonder if you want to close with some remarks.
No, I just thought that one of the things that I took from this is that it is a big task to learn these new skills, and it is a lot for teachers who have done things the way they have for years, and they haven't done anything wrong. You have to remember that they have done good things over the years, and we can't put them down for that. I think it's a teamwork. We all have to work together, and sometimes students teach us, and sometimes hopefully even students learn something from us also, from us teachers. So I think it's teamwork.
Definitely. The power of community is what's going to take the world of education forward. And I love that. And I would like to close it with that point of let's go forward in a more positive and build a more positive narrative. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. It was a pleasure spending 1.5 hours with you. We will share this video. It might take a few days, but we'll share it on YouTube. So the ones who missed it or were having some technical difficulties in the beginning can watch it. And at the same time, I will tomorrow send out a feedback form. So if you want to leave us your thoughts, how we can improve these discussions, as well as if you have any innovations that you would like to recommend to Frederica and the research team who are working in the space of breadth of skills, and maybe at HundrED we don't know about them, we would love to hear from you, because again, change is happening and we just want to spread and build a positive message around it. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining. And I hope to see you next time at the next thematic talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.